Welcome to comprehensive overview of Indus Valley Civilization for GS-1 UPSC. In this second part on Indus Valley slash Harappan Civilization for GS-1 Prelims and Mains, we will cover these four remaining topics: urban planning and architecture, economic systems of Indus Valley, society and religion, Indus script, and lastly, theories on decline of the civilization. First part of the video on this Indus Valley civilization covered topics like discovery and timeline, geographical extent of the civilization, and major sites of the civilization. Its link is in the description and pinned comment. Harappan cities were built on a common urban planning model that reflected a high degree of standardization across the civilization. Most major sites followed a generally rectangular grid pattern with streets oriented roughly north south and east west. Major streets were broad enough to accommodate carts and civic movement, while side lanes were narrower but maintained a sense of proportional order, an indicator of planned urban design rather than organic growth. The city layout was typically divided into two distinct sections. The citadel, often an elevated mound, contained public buildings, granaries, and administrative or ritual structure. The lower town, spread out adjacent to it, was the main residential area, organized into rectangular blocks with streets intersecting at right angles. Among the most impressive achievements of the Harappans was their advanced drainage system. Many houses had access to a private or shared well and a bathing area. Wastewater from these spaces was directed into covered brick lined street drains, which included inspection holes and soakage pits for regular cleaning, an early form of municipal sanitation remarkable for its sophistication. Building standards were remarkably consistent throughout much of the civilization. Burnt bricks of standardized dimensions were widely used, typically maintaining a ratio close to 4:2:1 for length, width, and height. Such uniformity points to shared construction norms or regional coordination across vast areas. Residential structures were designed around open courtyards, providing light and ventilation. Rooms were arranged systematically around these courtyards, and ground floor windows rarely faced the street, suggesting an awareness of privacy and social order. Many houses contained wells, bathing platforms, and storage spaces, revealing a culture that valued both hygiene and comfort. The economy of Indus Valley civilization was built on farming, craft, and barter system. People of this civilization grew wheat, barley, pulses, and cotton on land renewed by the river floods. Farm animals like ox and cattle were used in rudimentary plough and moved harvested crops to settlements. Large brick platforms, interpreted as granaries, show that grain was stored for community use. Clay vessels and pottery were made for storage and transport. Workshops existed at many Indus civilization sites like Lothal, Rakhigarhi, Chanhodaro for making beads, copper and bronze tools. For trade measurement, Standard stone weights allowed goods to be valued by weight. Clay seals with animal motifs were pressed on packages to mark ownership and cargo. No evidence of coinage and currency shows that Harappan commerce relied on barter of grains, metals, and crafted goods as value. Cotton was spun and woven in several settlements. Archaeologists have found spinning tools and traces of woven cloth that confirm textile work. Textiles moved in local exchange and also reached trading partners beyond the region. Indus seals and beads discovered in Mesopotamia confirm contact between the two civilizations. Records from Mesopotamia describe a land called Melua, whose goods match Indus materials. These findings show earliest trade in ornaments, textiles, and metals, and import of tin and decorative stones from West Asia. These evidences of farming, craft production, storage, and barter shows how the Indus civilization sustained its economy. Archaeological findings suggest that Harappan society was relatively egalitarian in structure. There is no evidence of massive monuments or palaces built to glorify rulers. Urban planning was generally uniform, though some differences in house size show that some social variations existed. There is also no confirmed proof of a distinct priestly or ruling class. The famous priest king sculpture from Mohenjo-daro may indicate some level of social authority, but its true role remains uncertain. Religious practices are understood mainly through archaeology. Female figures found in large numbers might represent fertility symbols or deities, though their exact role is unclear. One seal, often called the Pashupati seal, shows a yogic figure surrounded by animals. Some link it to Shiva, but that remains speculative. Animal motifs like bulls, elephants, and tigers appear often on seals and may have carried symbolic meaning. Tree motifs, possibly the peepal tree, also appear and could have held ritual significance. At Kalibangan and to some extent Lothal, brick fire altars suggest ritual activity involving fire. Burial practices varied, and evidence of three kinds of burials have been found. First, complete burial was the most common method. Second, fractional burial involved interment after exposure to the elements. Third, cremation. Among Harappa's most iconic artifacts are the dancing girl bronze sculpture found in Mohenjo-daro, the priest king limestone figure also found in Mohenjo-daro, painted pottery, and thousands of inscribed seals depict a vibrant and culturally rich aspect of Harappan society. The Indus script remains undeciphered with notable characteristics. They are as follows. First, over 4,000 inscriptions appear on seals, pottery, and metal objects. Second, around 400 distinct signs are identified depending on how variants are counted. Third, the average inscription length is 4 to 5 signs. Fourth, the direction is primarily right to left. Fifth, the type is uncertain, possibly logosyllabic or logographic. Attempts to decipher point to different possibilities. First, links it to the Dravidian language family. Second, links it possibly to Indo-Aryan connections. Third, Computer-based analysis show statistical patterns that may indicate linguistic structure. Fourth, progress is limited by short inscriptions and the lack of bilingual texts. Because the script is undeciphered, knowledge of Harappan administration, literature, and religious detail depends on archaeological evidence rather than written records. Recently, Tamil Nadu government announced a reward of 1 million US dollars to anyone who can successfully decipher the Indus script. You can see when this announcement was made, the banner has the picture of John Marshall on the left side, who was the ASI Director General in 1921 when ASI made the formal announcement of the discovery of Indus Valley Civilization. Do check out part 1 of this video in which I have covered the formal discovery of Indus Valley Civilization by ASI in detail. The mature Harappan phase ended around 1900 BC, though the pace of decline was not the same everywhere. In some regions, cities collapsed quickly, in others, the transition to the late Harappan phase was more gradual. Several factors contributed to this decline. First, environmental change. Growing aridity and shifting monsoon patterns reduced agricultural output. Second, changes in river systems, the Ghaggar Hakra, often linked to the Saraswati River, began to dry up, and the Indus changed its course, disrupting many settlements. Third, natural disasters. Repeated flooding occurred at several sites, and some evidence points to occasional earthquakes. Fourth, ecological strain. Deforestation, resource depletion, and soil salinization added pressure on the environment. Fifth, economic weakening. Long distance trade declined, and the balance between urban and rural areas broke down. And finally, internal factors. Administrative structures weakened and social patterns began to shift, hastening the decline. In the late Harappan period, between 1900 and 1300 BC, major cities were abandoned. People moved to smaller rural settlements. Craft traditions lost their earlier precision. Long distance trade networks shrank, yet traces of Harappan culture continued in pottery styles, ornaments, and local practices. That's it for now. With part 1 and this part 2 video, we have covered the entire range of Indus Valley Civilization topics, from its discovery, geography, timelines, to all of its different aspects for GS-1 paper. I'm linking video of 10 multiple choice questions related to the topics asked in previous UPSC exams. You will also find part 1 of this video in the description box. All the best for your UPSC prep. Subscribe if you found value.